What are the exciting out-of-conference duels to watch this season? Of course, we know that Penn State and Ohio State are going to be a great duel. We know that Iowa versus Penn State is going to be a great duel, as well as many other duels. But what are the exciting out-of-conference duels that you need to watch this season? I did the homework, so you don't have to. Now, this was inspired by the Open Match Viewer Guide, which I will link to in the description below, so you guys can check that out. Before we get into it, I want to mention a couple of honorable mentions, and I have 5 duels for you guys to watch this season, and that'll be very fun to watch. First up is Iowa State. Iowa State versus Iowa, I think, is an exciting out-of-conference duel to watch. Next up is Lehigh versus Penn State. Now, I'm going to get into these duels, talk about kind of where these teams are ranked, some key matchups, as well as when these teams are actually wrestling. First up, one of the first matches of the season is Campbell versus Pitt. This is an exciting out-of-conference duel to watch. Campbell, of course, in the Southern Conference, in the SoCon, Pitt in the ACC. Why is this so exciting? I think this is a duel that is very possible for Campbell to win, and very possible to, if Campbell wins this, it pushes them up into the upper echelon, breaking that top 25. Right now, they're around like the number 30-ish rank, but I think that if they beat Pitt, which I think there are a lot of great matchups here. A couple of great matchups, such as at 133, Noah Gonchar versus Mickey Philippi. At 141, Cole Matthews versus Josh Heil. All these guys are top ranked, top 25. And then a heavyweight, which is the match I'm most looking forward to, is Demetrius Thomas versus Jerry Hino. Jerry Hino out of Campbell, Thomas, of course, out of Pitt. This duel is happening one of the first few weeks of the season on November 9th. Make sure that you are watching that, because it's going to be a very fun one at Pittsburgh. Next up is Penn State, the number 1 team right now, versus number 5 team, Arizona State. Now, of course, this is an out-of-conference duel because Penn State is Big Ten, Arizona State is Pac-12. This duel is happening, another early season duel, November 22nd. Many key matchups here. First matchup I'm just interested in seeing is Adam Bushella at 133 versus Roman Bravo Young. While I do think Bravo Young is going to end up winning that, I'd just like to see how Bushella is going to come into the season. As well as 141, another similar match with Kleblove versus Nick Lee. I want to see how Kleblove does this season coming into his redshirt freshman year. At 149, Jared Verclaren versus Maruka. These are 2 PA guys, who are now going to be wrestling at Arizona State and in the duel. And I'm excited to see how Maruka and Verclaren do against each other, because I think they're very similar wrestlers, but I want to see kind of how they do. At 157, Brady Berge versus Corey Teamer. 65, 2 Whippeal guys in Vincenzo Joseph and Josh Shields, 2 guys who have wrestled many times in the past, and that's always an exciting duel because it's very close, an exciting match, I should say. And Anthony Valencia, who's the Heat Valencia's brother, will be wrestling Mark Hall. And then Rashid versus Valencia at 184. I think that Penn State is going to end up coming out with that match, but looking at the matchups, they're a little bit closer than I would have first thought. The next duel to watch this season is NC State versus Princeton. This is an ACC versus EIWA matchup, the number 13 versus number 15 team, which can be very exciting. This is happening on January 11th with a couple of key matchups in Camacho versus Pat Glory starting at 125, Hayden Hidley versus Quincy Monday at 157. Well, I think Hidley's going to end up with that victory. It'll be interesting to see how Monday does. And then Nick Reenan versus Patrick Bruckey at 197. 2 guys who are definitely national title contenders. That will be the key matchup in that duel. Next up is going to be Missouri at Oklahoma State. Missouri right now is the number 8 ranked team in the country, and Oklahoma State is number 3. Now, this is a MAC versus Big 12 duel, and I have opponents, I have teams from every single conference here, which I think we don't always just want to talk about, the Big 10, which many wrestling news sites get accused of doing. We want to talk about all these conferences, because every team has exciting guys to watch, and every conference has exciting guys to watch. So let's talk about that. So Missouri versus Oklahoma State. This will not be happening until February, but we have a couple of key matchups in Grant Leith versus Caden Gefeller at 141, and then Dalen Wiseman versus Dakota Gear, top-ranked guys at 184. And perhaps one of the biggest duels on this list doesn't happen until February 22nd, noted the Bedlam series in Oklahoma State versus Iowa, number 2 versus number 3 right now, and it's very possible that they stay that way unless they pull off a couple of upsets later in the season. Big 12 versus Big 10 matchup. Now, of course, these two started wrestling in the early 1900s, and they've met over 100 times. So this is going to be no difference in this massive, massive rivalry. They will be wrestling at Carver Hawkeye Arena in Iowa. Massive matchups in Spencer Lee, versus Nick Piccinini. And that, of course, at 125 was a massive match last year whenever Nick Piccinini ended up pulling off a crazy upset and pinning Spencer Lee. We will also see Gefeller versus Max Murin at 141 and Michael Kemmer versus Smith at 174. JoJo Smith, great matches to watch. Of course, anything can happen in a duel like that, and I'm excited to see what does happen in these exciting out-of-conferences duels that you need to watch this season.